Hello and welcome to Cyberlab. In this episode, we will look at setting up users and groups in TrueNAS Scale, which will include a discussion on their key differences. So let's get into it. Okay, so as you can see, this is the main dashboard of TrueNAS Scale. Now this, I'm currently using I've got like a small NUC, which I use for testing purposes. And I've already gone through on the NAS that I'm running here. I've already gone through setting up the users and groups I need, but also I want to protect my privacy a little bit in terms of members in the household. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the test device here, and that will help me set up a number of users, some file shares, and then what we'll do, we'll look at sort of how we can set up access to those file shares using sort of assigning directly a user to the resource, or we can assign a member to a group, which might give them access to multiple resources. And that's going to be the sort of the key difference between users and groups, whereas it's probably more important in an enterprise environment than it is, say, at home. But then I guess, you know, you've got like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 family members, all each with their own requirements, different file shares, different media, for example, then you probably would find some use for groups in that context. But certainly in an enterprise environment, giving access to resources using groups or roles based on somebody's role is massive in terms of helping security, helping administration, reducing human error. As an example, like I started my career off in the help desk, and then I moved into my current role as a SOC analyst. And obviously, those two different roles, they need different access to different resources on the network. And so if I was just given access to resources simply by using my user account, the person that was doing the setting up would have to go through individually each resource and add me or remove me, depending on, getting the role and leaving the role. And so it makes the job take much longer, makes it more complicated, but it also introduces human error, greater potential for human error. It makes troubleshooting harder. Like if you've got 30 things to look through, it's easier to miss if there's been a mistake made. So if I had the role, say, help desk role, which was a group, and then that group got added to each of the resources that my role needed. And then now for my SOC analyst role, I would be in a different group for that role, which then gets access to all the required resources. And so it's a very, very efficient way of keeping resources secure, making sure that only the people that are meant to be accessing a certain resource for their role are accessing that resource. And I guess it comes down to something called role-based access control, or RBAC, which again, on a home environment, it's not as important or even required in some situations. Like if you've only got 1 or 2 of you living in the house, it's very unlikely that you'd need to set up groups, because it just adds an extra layer of complexity in that in that sense, unnecessary complexity. So you'd be setting up groups for 2 of you or 1 of you. It's unnecessary. You might as well just add yourself to the resource kind of thing. So again, it all depends on what the needs are, how many resources are being accessed and whatnot. So. All right, so let's get into it. First thing we'll do, we'll go to the credentials section, and we will go to users. Now, as you can see, this is a fairly fresh install. So there's a root user, which is a built-in, and then part of installing TrueNAS Scale, you set up this, which is the default admin user account, which is what this is currently logged in. You can see at the top right here, TrueNAS admin. And so I don't really want to be using this for, say, accessing a network file share, or placing a games library, or putting a movie repository, or that kind of thing. So what we'll do, we will add a new user. Let's use capitals. We're going to use Alice. we're going to give her SMB access. Now let's do need to make sure I remember these. Now, as you can see, this I've put username and password. Confirm the password. Thankfully, they look like they're matching. Full name hasn't been set. Email hasn't been set. For the purpose of this, I'm not going to go through any of those. Obviously, if you were setting this up for your family, then you might want to get into adding the full name. But for this purpose, we're just going to use username and set a password up. Now, obviously, I'll find a secure way of giving Alice her password. And what we would also want is for her to then change it on the first use, where she'll change it to something that is personal to her, and I also don't know it, because obviously being an admin on this server, it makes I have a lot of power, but it also means there's a lot of risk, and so it's much better for users to know their passwords and no one else. So we're going to call this one Bob. And we'll give Bob. Oop. I think they're the same. Excellent. Save that. And we'll do Eve. Now, those of you who have done any sort of education on cybersecurity, and more importantly, cryptography, these names will be, you'll be recognizing these names. Okay, so Alice, Bob, and Eve are all users. We've given them, for just the purpose of this example, we've given them SMB access each. Depending, like, as an example, if we go back here, as you can see, you can do TrueNAS access, shell access, and SSH access. For the administrator, will obviously have access to all these, and general user, to keep it safe, we're just going to select SMB access 1. I don't want a general user being able to access the TrueNAS administrative portal. Not, in a corporate, in an enterprise environment, corporate environment, there's obviously the risk of malicious behavior, but also, more importantly than that, it's the risk of human error and causing problems on the network. So anyway, just quick explanation of that. Now let's go back to credentials again, and we're going to select groups. So let's not do that yet. Let's make some data sets first. So we've got our 3 users, and I've handed them their passwords, so they should all be able to log in once we set these shares up. And so I'm going to use the example of just setting up some data sets under Tank. Now I have created a master or main data set called Tank. Won't go into storage pools and VDEVs in this particular video. In the next, or possibly one after that, we'll go through storage, give an overview of storage then. But for this purpose, what we'll do, we'll select Tank. We're going to add a data set here, and we'll call this one file share. Let's give it SMB. SMB name will be file share. Just leaving everything as default for the time being. Now, data preset, you can do generic apps or multi-protocol. For the purpose of this example, we'll be doing SMB because it is just setting up an SMB share. Again, when I go through storage, we'll look at this in a little bit more detail. But these are just being used just to simply show an example for the use of groups and user accounts, for example. So let's call this one movies, TV. Again, we'll do an SMB. We'll say save. It should appear in the list as well. Cool. Another data set. We'll call this one games. Call it SMB. All Okay, I think that's... a sec. Oh no. Oh, I've done that in the wrong one. So let's... Whoopsie. Let's delete that. Movies, TV, games. So this is why you shouldn't let anyone have access to a admin portal, because they do silly things like that. All right, our data set. So now we've selected the parent folder. And let's go, what did we say it was? Games. Made myself lose my train of thought. Okay, excellent. Awesome. Okay, so now what we have 3 users and we have 3 SMB file shares. So let's, okay, let's add some personal ones. Alice said, Alice would like some file, like a file server just for her files. Oh, I've done it again, haven't I? Whoops. The good thing with this is you can just delete them straight away. I mean, technically, I could potentially put it under file shares because it is essentially a file share. But that will introduce some complexity in terms of applying access rights, with the parent folder being a group file share and then individual ones underneath it. So rather than do that, this is meant to be just a very sort of high level overview of the main differences and the uses of you know, having user accounts versus groups, and just setting them up, you know, how the setup process goes in TrueNAS. And so right, let's hit tank. We will go to a data set. And again, Alice has mentioned that she would like, let's just do Alice files. And so does Eve. Eve said she wants something private. Eve private. Bob's not mentioned. Oh my God, Grant. See, this is why it's good doing unscripted. Videos. Okay, let's go back to that. Our data set. We will do Eve private. We will class that as SMB. Okay, there we go. So this is why. See, I'm providing a very good example of why you should double check your work before you hit commit to doing something. But yeah, so actually on that, like, I decided for the next sort of few months, because this is very new to me, I figured I'm going to just record the videos and just minimal editing. I think it's a good way for me to learn how to organize my thoughts, just get better at overall flow, and just get comfortable in front of the camera. So yeah. Anyway, back to the actual topic, which is Alice files, Eve private, file share, games, movies, and TV. So now we've got 5 file shares, which for 3 people is probably reasonable. We will... yeah, so now we've got, as you can see, if we go to credentials, let's remind ourselves, we have 3 users, and we have 5 data sets with SMB, file share setup. Okay, so let's go to Alice files. And at the moment, the only people who can access this are root user, the root group, and then the other group. So let's edit the permissions on this. And let's remove the other. So obviously, as a root user, the administrator will essentially got access to everything, which is fine. That's kind of an expected permission of the root/admin user. So what we're going to do, Unix permissions, let's get, let's do Alice, and we'll choose her group. Now Alice can read, write, and execute. The group can read and execute. Now this one here says apply permissions recursively. What that means is if we select that checkbox, as you can see, it actually tells you what that is. Setting permission recursively will affect this directory and any others below it. This might make data inaccessible. So essentially what this means is because we've given Alice the ability to read, write, and execute, she's essentially got full control over her personal folder. By applying these permissions recursively, any subfolders that she creates, which she's allowed to create because of the permissions we've given her, any folder she creates underneath her Alice file share, Alice files, all of them will have the same, all the permissions of the parent folder will be copied down recursively to all the subfolders underneath. There we go. See, apply permissions recursively. I don't think we need to do the child datasets because Alice is not going to be accessing. We're not going to make another dataset, a sub-dataset under the parent one. We're just going to provide the dataset for Alice. She's going to then be able to make folders and directories to her heart's content, and that will be fine. So what we're going to do, we're going to select save these permissions. Now we should come back and the permissions will look a little bit different. There we go. So we've got Alice, other has none. So that's good. Excellent. So owner is Alice and Alice. Oh, actually, let's still need root. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. Let's leave it like that. Okay, so we're going to go to Eve private, and we are going to do the same. Edit. Oh, this looks a bit different. Oh, that's because... Okay, I'm actually going to delete that and we'll start again. I think that's because I made an error when I first set this one up. Okay, let's just leave it like... Okay, see, that actually looks a little bit more... Okay, brilliant. So these are all SMB file shares. Okay, so yeah, I did make a mistake with setting up the Alice data set there. So this ACL looks a little bit more what we are wanting here. So we've got built-in administrators have full control. Built-in users will be allowed to modify and group owner at root. So the root is obviously the owner because that's my account that created it. But let's go in and edit this. And what we'll do is I think we should remove built-in users because we don't want everybody accessing Eve's private file shares. So we just want Eve in here. So what we'll do is we'll say we'll add item user, and we're going to select the user from here. And the user will be Eve. So now you can see allow, modify. So allow, permission, basic, modify, read. Excellent. So that means she can create, delete, and so she'll be able to create folders, directories. She'll be able to delete folders, directories. She'll be able to upload files, download files, delete files, modify files, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to click to apply these permissions recursively. So anytime Eve wants to create folders, etc., these permissions will be copied to that as well. We're not going to do anything with the child data sets. Eve doesn't have the capacity, the permission to do that. So let's save that access control list. And that ACL will look a little bit different now. Excellent. So as you can see, root has the ability to, and administrators still have access to it, which is important for troubleshooting, etc. And the user Eve has allowed access with modify as well. All right, so let's look at this one. So if we go into file share ACL, let's get rid of... Now, there's two ways of doing this. You could, because it's a group, because we want this file share to be like for all the users, you could actually just leave this as built-in users. This would give all three, Alice, Bob, and Eve, access to log into the, map the drive, or directory or folder, whatever you want to call it. Add files, delete files, etc., etc. But we could also add a group. Let's go back to credentials and let's look at groups. So we haven't made any groups yet for group stuff. So this is good. This is what we wanted to do. This is done. So this is going to be the difference between the user group that comes with each of these. And so 303 name. We'll call this file share. Privileges. No privileges allowed. None of those. None of those. We're going to call this an SMB group. Let's do save. So it's a non-admin group, and we are allowed to do Samba authentication. Actually, what we should do for each of these users is well, we won't do it for Bob. Actually, what we'll do, because Alice doesn't have a file share, we will do that. We will give Eve SMB group, because she's the only one that does have her own data set. And anyone who is a member of the file share group will have SMB authentication permission, but it will only apply to the data sets that we give that access to. And so I'm going to give that access to the file share data set. Let's add another one. Let's call this one entertainment. SMB group. And let's do another one called movies, TV. Okay, so 3 file shares there. And all right, let's go back to our data sets. So file share, let's go to edit the ACL. Let's remove built-in users, add an item, add a group. We're going to add file share group, modify access, apply permissions recursively, confirm and continue, save access control list. Excellent. So now the file share will be accessible by anyone in the file share group. Let's go back to groups. Let's go here. Let's click on members. Now we get to add members to this group. So let's add. So we're going to select Alice, Bob, and Eve. And then we're going to click on this arrow here to move the selected. Now, if you click the double arrow, that's going to move all of them across. If you click this arrow, that moves the selected members. So we're going to do that. Alice, Bob, and Eve are now members of the file share group. Excellent. And so now that means that when they go to access this network drive, they will all be able to access it because of that. Notice with Eve, only Eve can access her private file share. No one else can access it. Okay, so let's look at games and TV. So movies and TV, we will edit this. Now again, we could just have the built-in users, but let's just remove that. Let's add an item. Let's add a group. And we will add movies and TV because it's named. Again, apply permissions recursively, confirm, continue. Any subfolders, directories, any of the members of this group want, they can do that. We're going to save this to the access control list. So let's go back to credentials, go back to groups. We'll go back to movies and TV. Let's look at members. So we'll cycle down again. And only Alice and Bob wanted to be in the movies and TV group. So we're going to move Alice and Bob over here. Save. And then finally, let's look at the members. Let's put all of them into entertainment. Actually, no, Alice and Eve. We can do Alice and Eve into entertainment. No, let's do all of them. They all want entertainment. Oh, whoops. Move them, then save. Okay. Excellent. All right, so now we'll go to datasets. So movies and TV has just movies and TV. Let's add entertainment to this one as well. See, as you can see, we now have 2 groups that are on this one data set. And so what that means is movies and TV can be accessed by everybody, either in entertainment or in movies and TV. And so what that means is if, say, for example, there was one of the household decided they didn't want access to the games, but they just wanted access to the movies and TV. They didn't want access to games as well. They just wanted access to movies and TV. We would put them into the movies and TV group. So let's actually make this a little bit more sensible, members. So Alice and Bob don't want the games. They just want the movies and TV. So we'll save that. But Eve wants it all. So let's actually remove Alice and Bob from this. And we'll just put Eve in the entertainment. Okay, so what that now means is Eve has access to this movies and TV data set via the entertainment group. And she also has access to the games when we set that up. So let's set that up now. So let's remove built-in users. Let's add a group. Let's add entertainment. Apply recursively. And save access control list. Alrighty, so now in games, we have the entertainment group. In movies and TV, we have the movies and TV group and the entertainment group. And so this is a simple way of showing that using groups, we can apply permissions to multiple resources. And again, this would be similar in an enterprise environment with someone working in an infrastructure role to a security role. Like both roles might need access to one resource, whereas like let's say Azure Entra ID portal, and only one of them needs access to, say, like email, the administrative portal for email exchange. And so the help desk would have access to both, and the security permission would have access to just the Azure portal because they don't need to be administrator for email, as an example. So there you go. So, okay, so that's those all set up. So only Eve can access her private data set. The group file share data set members need to be in the file share group, which is all three, Alice, Bob, and Eve. Again, we could have just used the built-in users for that, but I felt, it was good to just show this as an example, because this has everybody in the group. The games is entertainment, and that is only Eve. And then movies and TV, we have as movies and TV, but also entertainment, depending on that. Thank you very much. See you on the next video.